met me 6 months ago, then met me again now, you probably wouldn't notice that my perception of humor kind of shifted slightly. You still would have noticed that I kind of have that sarcastic humor where I try to parody and make fun of anything I see on the TV screen. And you'd also see that I still have a respect for slapstick humor, but only used in a clever way. I don't really think using slapstick humor in an over-the-top and silly way is very funny, but if you use it in a clever way, I have respect for that type of humor. But you probably wouldn't notice a subtle change in what I find humorous and what I don't. Recently, my humor has kind of dipped into the weird side, and there's really one reason for that. Now, if you clicked on this video, you're probably aware of what I'm getting into here. But if you're not, let me tell you how the comedy duo Tim and Eric changed the way I perceive humor. When the Red Band teaser trailer for Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie came out, I was very interested because there was all this buzz surrounding it, and people were saying, oh, the Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie Red Band teaser is out. And it was all over a bunch of movie websites and a bunch of blogs, and I was very curious to find out what this exactly was. And I really wasn't prepared for what my eyes were about to behold. You ever have that feeling when you're about to step into a strange situation that you really don't feel like you're comfortable getting into, and your brain kind of does a 180 or something, like it's trying to focus on reality? That's basically what happened after I saw this. No, that's never happened to you? I think I need to see a doctor. Right after that teaser trailer ended, I didn't know what to think. My brain couldn't comprehend what I just saw on the computer screen. Basically, my first impression was just shock. I had no idea what I just watched, and I was extremely interested, but also completely and utterly weirded out. I felt like I was weirdly assaulted, visually and mentally. So a couple hours after letting the teaser trailer sit with me, I watched it again. And again. And again. And again. So after about my 20th viewing, I tried to figure out, what is this? What is Tim and Eric? What's the context behind this? Why is there so much hype behind this? So after doing my own research, I figured out that Tim and Eric Awesome Show Great Job is an 11-minute show that really has no plot. It's just skits interwoven within each other that don't really have any relation to each other. There's a small plot interspersed in each episode, but the small plot doesn't really have any relation to any other episode in any of the series, any of the seasons. Each plot in each episode is unique and brief, and basically all the effort is put into these little skits that kind of separate the plot into little blocks. So I figured, hey, it's a show, why don't I go on YouTube and look for some clips? So once again, I was stepping into a new realm of comedy that I had absolutely no perception of before, and yet again completely unprepared for what I was going to watch. So once I clicked on the first clip, I was eager in anticipation, and then I saw this. That clip was basically nails on a chalkboard for me. I hated it so much. So much. I still hate it. I still hate that clip because it's so mind-meltingly unfunny. It's really appalling at how unfunny I thought it was. The clip lasted too long. I couldn't find anything funny in it. And once it actually does get to the part where it thinks it's being really funny, it's just terribly executed gross-out humor. So after that clip, I thought, man, it's just one clip. Couldn't get any worse than that. Hopefully the entire show isn't exactly like that one clip, so I just decided to click on the next one. And I got this. How severely mentally handicapped do you have to be to find this funny. It's completely random, it lasts for too long yet again, and there's just nothing funny in it. It's just a void of unfunniness. The only funny part is the end, and that's it. I got a big laugh out of that, and that's it. I didn't even have to watch the last few minutes of just randomness. I could have just skipped to the end. So after those 2 clips, I was very turned off by the show. I didn't really think I had any desire left to check out any other clips or anything. So I kind of just stayed away from that show for a little bit and just let that horrible, horrible experience sit with me. So life went on, and I eventually heard about the feature-length trailer for Tim and Eric's billion-dollar movie. So with much dismay, I reluctantly watched it. And watching the feature-length trailer kind of had the same effect on me after watching the teaser trailer. Except I found the trailer only a little bit funny after the first viewing. Then I watched it again, and it got funnier. Then I watched it again, and then it got even funnier. I watched it again, it got even funnier. I watched it again, then it was hilarious. So then my enthusiasm to check out the show was completely re-energized. And after watching some actually good clips from the show, something magical happened. My sense of humor now had a completely different side to it, a side that was completely irreverent and weird in its nature, and could only be the true definition of subjective humor. Every reference to the show feels like you're telling a very deep inside joke between your friends. It's humor filled with various social abnormalities that people would just cringe at and kind of turn their nose up on. The show finds humor in exaggerating the smallest things and making things that you wouldn't exactly think are funny usually, funny. And if you want to get really deep into it, you could say that this show is brilliant for deconstructing people's perceptions of advertising. The show does get a little bit too dry for me at times, but my love and respect for this brand of humor kind of overshadows that. I gotta go on about my opinion of how well realized and self-aware this humor is, but I have to get on with the review. So if you couldn't tell by now, once the movie neared its release date, I was very pumped to see Tim and Eric's billion-dollar movie. And I wasn't the only one hyping this movie up. The reason why this movie has so much excitement around it is because the show has a big cult following, and I can understand why, because this is for a very specific group of people who understand and respect this brand of humor, while most other people would just be lost in the midst of other people laughing their asses off. So I went the whole 9 yards with my expectations for this movie. I thought it was going to be the funniest movie of all time, one of the best movies of the year, yada yada yada. And while it certainly, absolutely is not that at all, Tim and Eric's billion-dollar movie is a very good comedy that I think fans will definitely enjoy. So unlike the TV show, Tim and Eric's feature-length film actually has a plot. Tim Heidecker and Eric Wareheim play 2 Hollywood actors that owe $1 billion to a movie studio. And the plot basically centers around them trying to pay back the $1 billion by them reopening a basically destroyed shopping mall. Weirdly funny and hilarious antics ensue. Now literally right at the beginning you get that Tim and Eric style of humor. Your perception of reality is played with, and it just has that feel of just overall weirdness, and you would expect that knowing that you're going into a movie written and directed by Tim and Eric. Now the way this movie's story is told in a very awkward and sketch-like way, and you'd expect that from Tim and Eric, but compared to any other comedy or any other film really, it's a little off-putting, but you get used to it if you know what you're getting into. Now one of the main complaints I hear from fans, and one that I honestly wasn't expecting, is that the movie tries to center its humor too much around the plot. There's not enough weird humor with weird editing that you see in the 15-minute long show, and people were kind of let down by that because this is an hour-and-a-half movie. And I understand why they would kind of feel a little strange, how they would kind of feel like there was something a little off, as opposed to a 15-minute long short that they were used to. As I said, I still have that kind of humor that I had before I experienced Tim and Eric. So I found most of the jokes centering around what was happening very funny, mostly because now that I'm aware that there's all these different brands of humor, I definitely have respect for all the different kind of jokes they're going for in this movie. I totally respected the in-plot jokes that surrounded the movie because I feel like I'm the kind of person that respects all brands of humor now that I've experienced the basically weird side of humor, except for fart jokes. I hate those. One of the things I was most excited for were the cameos in this film, and most of them that appear in this movie have been on the show before, like Will Ferrell, Galifianakis, Jeff Goldblum, Will Forte, John C. Reilly. All of the cameos work well in what purpose they serve to the plot, and for comedic purposes as well. My personal favorite was Galifianakis as Tim and Eric's spiritual leader. He was so funny in the movie.
Breathe.
In the grand scheme of Tim and Eric's various comedic endeavors, This will definitely be one of the straighter acts they will ever do. Because you have all this in-plot humor, and then on the other hand, you have this insanely wacky, over-the-top humor that's very reminiscent of the show. And while that bizarre humor is few and far between, I personally would have liked a little bit more of that, but I was happy enough with the in-plot humor and everything else that went along with it that was not the bizarre humor. And as I said before, the wackiness can hit a very low point of extreme dryness to an insane high point that is just completely bonkers and actually a little bit graphic at times. It can be graphic, but mostly it's just extreme gross-out humor. Like, extreme gross-out humor. But it doesn't exactly hit that repulsive or sickening level of gross-out humor. It's actually very, very well executed and very funny. That is, if you're a fan of Tim and Eric or this kind of humor in general. And even though I'm commending the in-plot humor of this movie all this time, it does kind of drag down the pace of the movie a bit, and it does make you feel the length at times, which isn't exactly great for a 90-minute movie. While the humor is very abundant in this movie, I mean, it's comedy, duh. The movie weaves in a very well-placed and subtle message about how some people build companies and the arrogance that goes into that motivation of building a corporation, and just that kind of stigma and naivety that can go into that. And I didn't quite notice this at first. After thinking about it for a few hours, the real message of the plot kind of sunk in, and I could see how they delivered the message through the way they structured the plot and the way characters acted. And personally, I have no idea if Tim and Eric are aware of this one thing that I probably think is the moral of the story that maybe didn't even have a moral to the story. It could have been just a movie plot that they wanted to do to get laughs out of people, I don't know. But if my theory is true, I really appreciate the way they slyly snuck that into the plot. A few things I didn't really care for were the way the story turned out. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I don't really like when characters die for just shock and or humor. Personally, I feel like it's kind of an insulting way to get laughs out of people. And I also didn't really like Will Forte's cameo in the movie. I didn't think it was terrible, I just kind of found him annoying and really not that funny. But I think after a second viewing, and yes, you'll probably want to see this again, or not if you're not into this kind of humor, I'm just saying. He does have the plot, and maybe it'll kind of grow on you. I give Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie a B+, 4 out of 5. It's a solid comedy that I think fans of this show will definitely enjoy. The movie is instant on Netflix now, and if you check it out, maybe your perception of humor will evolve just like mine did.